Welcome. Today we will cover the Americans with Disability Act. The general overview will include the definition, history, survey statistics, modern-day examples, and conclusion.
What is the Americans with Disabilities Act? The Americans with Disabilities Act, or also known as the ADA, prohibits discrimination and guarantees that people with disabilities have the same opportunities as everyone else to participate in the mainstream of American life. This entails enjoying employment opportunities, purchasing goods and services, and participating in state and local government programs and services. And now the history of the ADA. The ADA was signed into law on July 26, 1990 by President George H.W. Bush. The ADA was modeled after the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, or national origin, and the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. The ADA story began a long time ago in cities and towns throughout the United States when people with disabilities began to challenge societal barriers that excluded them from their communities, and when parents of children with disabilities began to fight against the exclusion and segregation of their children. It began with the establishment of local groups to advocate for the rights of people with disabilities. The establishment of the independent living movement, which challenged the notion that people with disabilities needed to be institutionalized, and which fought for and provided services for people with disabilities to live in their community. Today, in order to be protected by the ADA, one must have a disability which is defined by the ADA as a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities. A person who has a history or a record of such an impairment, or a person who is perceived by others as having an impairment. In the ADA, it does not specifically name all of the impairments that are covered. Organizations with 15 or more employees are covered by the provisions of the ADA, which are enforced by the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. The Act applies to private employers, employment agencies, and labor unions. State government employees are not covered by the ADA, which means that they cannot sue in federal court for redress and damages. However, they may still bring suit under state laws and state courts. More than 341,000 Americans were surveyed over 2 years. Survey was conducted by National Snapshot of Adults with Intellectual Disabilities in the Labor Force commissioned by the Special Olympics. This survey looked at both the labor force participation rate, which was the percentage of working age people who work currently or unemployed seeking a job, for 2011 and 2012. Labor force participation rate for people with intellectual disabilities was about half of the general populations. 44% versus 83% indicated more than half of people with intellectual disabilities have dropped out or were never in workforce. Unemployment rate for people with intellectual disabilities was more than twice as high as the general populations at the time of the study. That'd be 21% versus 9%. Many with intellectual disabilities work part-time and many for less than minimum wage. Survey reveals an extremely low employment rate of those with intellectual disabilities. Nationally, 34% of people with intellectual disabilities are employed. Previous research conducted on behalf of Special Olympics had shown that 52% of adults who participate in Special Olympics are employed. Of employed people with intellectual disabilities, 53% are employed competitively, meaning they work alongside people without disabilities at a market-driven wage. 38% in a sheltered workshop, which means work centers specifically for people with disabilities, and 9% in other settings, example, self-employed. Of those competitively employed, 28% work in customer service, 17% in retail, 16% in food service, 9% in offices, 8% in manufacturing, and 22% in other sectors such as childcare and landscaping. Of the adults with intellectual disabilities employed in a competitive setting, over half, 62% to be precise, have been at their job for 3 years or more. However, only 26% of employed adults with intellectual disabilities have full-time jobs. Only a third were offered health insurance by their employer.
Michael Harrison has had prior history working in the fast food industry and has 2 years of experience working at hamburger franchise. The general manager for the restaurant told Harrison that there's really no place for someone we cannot communicate with. Harrison wins $41,500 from Wendy's, and now the franchise has to train their managers and supervisor employees in regards to hiring people with disabilities. A woman sues and wins $100,000 from Home Depot for terminating her as a cashier after returning from her cancer treatment. Judy Henderson has worked as a cashier for Home Depot for 13 years and has good evaluations for her performance. She requested unpaid leave for treating her cancer and was allowed by the franchise only if she provides updates on her medical status. Henderson provided all the necessary medical documents during her treatment, but was still terminated upon her return. The court sides with the plaintiff, stating, employers must give unpaid leave as a reasonable accommodation unless they can prove it would be a significant cost or disruption to its business. The EEOC charges AutoZone for $600,000 after failing to accommodate disabled employees. An AutoZone store in Mancomb, Illinois requires a stable manager to mop floors along with cleaning duties despite his medical restriction with his neck and back. The duty caused further injury and forced him to go on medical leave. The EEOC states that the duties violated the American with Disabilities Act, ADA, which requires that employers make reasonable accommodations to the known physical limitations of employees with disabilities.
Turning disabilities into abilities is the motto of New York-based Arc of Onondaga, a service-providing agency dedicated to helping those with developmental disabilities. However, when the organization refused to provide reasonable accommodations for one of their own employees, Christine Delay, her disability was hardly an ability. Christine is blind and has been using a specialized software program in which a computerized voice would read out loud the words on her computer screen. The implementation of a new software required that she use a mouse and navigate with the cursor on the screen. The following reenactment will elaborate the concerns Christine raised to her supervisor, Kristen Mori, and company CEO, Stanford Perry.
Computer on. Computer on. What's going on? Maury, Perry, could you come here, please?
Hey, Christine, how was your weekend?
What seems to be the issue here?
Something's wrong with my computer screen. It's not recognizing my voice, or.
Well, that's because we did an update. You got to start using this mouse now. You can do it.
Mice? What do you mean mice?
No, it's a mouse. Haven't you ever heard of one?
No. Well, my old system used to recognize my voice, and that's how I completed all my work. So.
Yeah, well, there's nothing we can do about that anymore. You're gonna start using this mouse. I'm 100% positive you can make it happen.
Hey, Perry, we're gonna be late for our meeting. We gotta go.
Okay. Oh, shoot.
But. Oh, fudge.
As the problem continued, Christine hired a lawyer who wrote to ARC and asked that they accommodate her. ARC, on the other hand, retaliated and had her sit through 3 90-minute video training sessions.
Okay, Christine, we got this new video training. It's going to show you how to use the new software. So here you go. Here's the mouse. There you go. You got it. You let me know when you're done, okay?
The training session proved to be useless because of her blindness. It consisted of her sitting in front of a video screen, listening to videos that she could not see or follow along with. Additionally, the practice proved to be humiliating and cruel.
So, Christine, you learn a lot?
No, this video is completely unhelpful. If we want to do this, why don't we turn off the lights so you can see what it's like?
Complicating things further, ARC demoted Christine and cut her pay by 25% after asking for reasonable accommodations. She proceeded to file suit with her lawyer Rick Guy, accusing Perry of being biased against her because of her disability, even before the new software implementation.
Hey, Murray, this lawsuit just came in, and I believe it's from Christine.
What? Let me take a look at this. So you say we won't give her reasonable accommodations? Man, we gave her a chair?
I know, right?
This is ridiculous.
In conclusion, Statistics support that disabled people are still being discriminated against when looking for employment. The EEOC continues to ensure that equal opportunities and accommodation for disabled people is honored. Through strict regulations and support, America can decrease the rate of unemployment for disabled citizens. Future managers, it is up to you to make a difference.